Good morning, Oklahoma Wesleyan. How is everyone? Let me do a little housekeeping up here. What I am going to say today is extremely controversial. So it's absolutely critical that you listen closely. Because I don't want you walking out of here thinking I said something I did not say. If you don't listen closely, the results can be disastrous.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät und das Gerät. Überlebensradar.
Mayday, Mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
Are you ready to listen closely, ladies and gentlemen? I need to warn you that this presentation is rated PG-13 at least. So if you're easily offended, I'm going to apologize right now because I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. Here's what we're going to do today. First thing we're going to talk about are intellectual predators on campus. For those of you that were here yesterday, I introduced a few of them to you. I'm going to introduce more today. Then we're going to talk about the impact these intellectual predators and our culture is having on our kids. And then we're going to talk about our solutions. So let's, and if I time this just right, we'll have absolutely no time for questions. Actually, we probably won't have any time for questions. But let's start here at point one, intellectual predators on campus. The reality of the college campus is this: 1 in 4 professors is either an atheist or an agnostic. In fact, college professors are 5 times more likely to be atheists than the general public. 52% of college professors view evangelical students unfavorably. The next closest group they view unfavorably was Mormons at 30 or so percent, and the next closest group were Muslims at 22%. So you're twice as likely, more than twice as likely to have a college professor view you unfavorably than a Muslim student unfavorably. Now don't get me wrong, I wish they wouldn't view anybody unfavorably out of the gate, but that's just the reality of it. 6%, only 6% of the professors say the Bible is the Word of God, and 51%, look, it's just full of myths and fables, and there are moral teachings in there. That's about all it's worth. And probably the leader of this whole movement to diss the Bible right now is, of course, Richard Dawkins, who said when one person suffers from a delusion, it's called insanity. When many people suffer from a delusion, it's called religion. If this book works as intended, the book is called The God Delusion, religious readers who open it will be atheists when they put it down. He's kind of an evangelist for atheism. Daniel Dennett is also a new atheist. He teaches at Tufts University. He wrote this: "They will see me as just another liberal college professor trying to control them out of some of their convictions, and they are absolutely dead right about that. That's what I am, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to change your kids as a college professor." Richard Rorty was actually even more specific on that. He said, we try to arrange things so that students who enter as bigoted, homophobic, religious fundamentalists will leave college with views more like our own. So we're going to write on to try and discredit you in the eyes of your children, trying to strip your fundamentalist religious community of dignity, trying to make your views seem silly rather than discussable. And on college campuses today, they don't even debate whether Christianity has any merit to it. They merely mock it. So they want to make your views seem silly rather than even discussable. Steven Weinberg, who is a PhD and a Nobel Prize winner in physics, he taught for many years at UT Austin, put it this way: "I personally feel that the teachings of modern science is corrosive of religious belief, and I'm all for that. If scientists can destroy the influence of religion on young people, then I think that might be the most important contribution that we can make." Wait. I thought the purpose of a college professor was to lead students to truth. so they could be better citizens. Not according to Weinberg. The most important thing a college professor can do is get you away from religion. Well, actually, if they get you away from traditional religion or a traditional faith, they're just asking you to accept a different faith, and that would be atheism. Everybody believes something. Now, it turns out Weinberg's exactly wrong. The evidence from modern science doesn't point away from a creator, it points directly to a creator, as we'll see here in a few minutes. Peter Singer, from down under, but teaches at Princeton, the school that was really started as an evangelical school, as you know, says this: when we reject belief in God, we must give up the idea that life on this planet has some preordained meaning. Life has, as a whole, no meaning. Life began in a chance combination of molecules. It then evolved through chance mutations and natural selection. All this just happened. It did not really happen for any overall purpose. There is no real meaning to life. And you know, if that's the case, what he goes on to say is human babies are not born self-aware or capable of grasping that they exist over time. They are not persons. Therefore, the life of a newborn is of less value than the life of a pig, a dog, or a chimpanzee. And he goes on basically to say that parents have the right to kill their infants up to 28 days after birth. This guy teaches at Princeton. Now, my question to Weinberg is, why 28 days? Why not 28 months? Why not 28 years? Why not Weinberg himself? I mean, if life is just a chance combination of molecules, then why not kill Weinberg if he's going to say anybody can kill their children up to 28 days? Where's this arbitrary line come from? It's completely arbitrary. Christopher Hitchens, whom I've had the opportunity to debate a couple of times. Tragically, he died a couple of years ago. You can see both of our debates for free, though, on our website, crossexamined.org. Just click on videos and you'll see them there. And, of course, Hitchens was a brilliant guy who had a British accent, which makes him sound even more brilliant. Here's what Hitchens said: I think religion should be treated with ridicule, hatred, and contempt, and I claim that right. He also said Charles Darwin was born in 1809 on the same day as Abraham Lincoln, and there is no doubt as to which of them has proved to be the greater emancipator. What does he mean by that? Darwin is the greater emancipator. Why? Because he's emancipated us from this idea that there's a God up there, this cosmic killjoy who's trying to look down on us and tell us what to do. And Darwin, therefore, has given us the right to just live however we want to live. Although, of course, Hitchens has his own moral precepts that he's trying to impose on everybody else. And if you read his book, God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything, you see that he is advancing certain moral ideas. In fact, they all advance certain moral ideas, why they say there are no certain moral ideas to advance. Bart Ehrman, who teaches at UNC Chapel Hill, he, of course, wrote the book Misquoting Jesus and has led many out of the faith. He says he was an evangelical himself. He said there are few things more dangerous than inbred religious certainty. In fact, not long ago, I got an email from a United States Marine, so I knew this man was no sissy. But he was not writing me as a tough guy. He was actually writing me as a distraught father. He said, my daughter was the top Christian student in her high school class. She helped lead the youth group. She won several awards, scholarships from Christian organizations to go to college. They said, you could take these to any school you want. So she wanted to go to UNC Chapel Hill to win the campus for Christ, and it needs to be one for Christ. So we sent her off there, he said, and then he said, about 4 weeks into the semester, her first semester, I got a phone call from her. He said, her words devastated me. She said, Dad, I don't believe in God anymore. I don't believe in God anymore? What? He said, I got in my car. I drove 4 hours from Hickory, North Carolina, all the way to Chapel Hill. I sat down with her, and I got nowhere with her. What do you mean you don't believe in God anymore? What happened? She said, well, I have an atheistic college professor who teaches in the religion department, and he went to an Ivy League school, so they always tell you the truth at an Ivy League school, right? And he says, we don't even know who wrote the Gospels. The Bible has errors in it, so, Dad, I'm an atheist now. You say that's Bart Ehrman, right? No, it wasn't Bart Ehrman. There's another guy there. Same kind of profile. He said, Frank, is there anything I can do about this? I was actually telling this story in a church once, and one guy in church yelled out, yeah, you know what I'd do? I'd bring her home. I said, you know, that's not bad advice. You go off to college, and after 4 weeks, you chuck everything you've believed for your entire 18 years. Maybe you're not mature enough to go to college, because I can guarantee you this. In 4 weeks, she did not evaluate all the evidence pro and con. But he said, is there anything I can do about this now? I said, Tom, have you ever gotten her any apologetics training? That's not saying you're sorry. That's giving evidence for what you believe. He said, you know, I wanted to do that, but I never got around to it. I wanted to actually send her to Summit out in Colorado. Never got around to that. He said, is there anything I can do now? I said, well, you could ask her a couple of questions. The first question, and by the way, this is questions I ask all unbelievers. First question, if I ask you a serious question, will you give me a brutally honest answer? Everybody always says, yeah, sure, go ahead. Second question, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? I said, Tom, if she hesitates at all, it's not just here, it's also here. She might not want it to be true. In fact, on several occasions in the past couple of years during I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist presentations that I give on college campuses, during the Q&A, when atheists get a little bit hostile, I'll usually stop and I'll say, hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? Sure, go ahead. If Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? On 3 occasions in the past 2 years, I've had atheists yell back at me, no! No? No, wait. I ask you, if something were true, would you believe it? And you say no? How's that reasonable? How's that rational? I mean, you claim to be a beacon of reason, right? You're an atheist. Never mind if atheism's true reason doesn't exist. Why? Because we're just molecules in motion if the atheists are right. We're not really thinking anyway. We're just reacting. Well, let's leave that aside. I ask you if it were true, would you believe? And you say no. How's that reasonable? How's that rational? It's not. You know what the elephant in the room is? The elephant in the room is morality and accountability. Most people are not believers, not because they're on some relentless pursuit of the truth and they've tracked it down and figured out Christianity's faults. They're not on a relentless pursuit of the truth. They're on a happiness quest. They're not on a truth quest. And whatever is going to make them happy, that's what they're going to believe. And I've had several people admit this, that no, I just don't want it to be true. Of course, several atheists, prominent atheists, have admitted this. That's why Christopher Hitchens called himself not an atheist, an anti-theist. It's not just that he doesn't believe in God, he's against God. Lawrence Krauss, who teaches at Arizona State, same thing, very prominent atheist now. Several others as well. This lady is Miriam Cook. She teaches at Duke University. She's a Muslim. Oh, well, you say she doesn't look like a Muslim. Yeah, but here's what she said. Islamic feminists, that's what she is, are declaring that, yes, Islam is the ideal just society. Islamic feminists confront any who threaten their Islamic or local community, whether they be organizations or individual men or Christians, Jews, or secular women. Islam is the ideal just society? What? Is that true, Abdu? Is it the ideal just society? No, he says no. Okay. We have testimony from an expert. He says no. Particularly Islamic feminists. What's that? Now, Duke was founded by who? Anyone know? Yeah, the Methodists. And they have a Muslim on the faculty, an Islamic feminist. This guy's name is James Tabor. He teaches at UNC Charlotte, where I'm from. Here's what he believes. James Tabor is the chairman of the Religious Studies Department at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. His book challenges many of the beliefs that Christians hold dear, maintaining that Jesus is neither the son of God nor the son of Joseph, but most likely the child of a Roman soldier named Pantera. Where does he get that from? What's the evidence does he have for that? He doesn't have any evidence. He's just saying, he says in his book, The Jesus Dynasty, since we know miracles don't occur, Jesus couldn't have been virgin born, therefore, probably somebody like Pantera impregnated Mary. He's just assuming what he's already trying to prove. He's just begging the question. But he's somebody that, of course, many students are led astray by. Charles Potter put it this way: education is thus a most powerful ally of humanism, and every American public school is a school of humanism. What can the theistic Sunday schools meeting for an hour once a week and teaching only a fraction of the children do to stem the tide of a 5-day program of humanistic teaching? Unfortunately, not much. Here are some Bible courses in colleges that you may have heard of. At Harvard, you can take feminist biblical interpretation and emancipatory biblical criticism. Emancipatory biblical criticism, what is that? Let's emancipate ourselves from the Bible because, you know, it's really getting in the way of what we want to do morally. In Georgetown, a Jesuit school, you can take womanist theology and womanist spirituality. At University of Pennsylvania, you can take feminist critique of Christianity. Last I checked, there was no class called feminist critique of Islam. At University of Michigan, you can take how to be gay, male homosexuality, and initiation. So much for being born that way. Now you can actually learn it. At UCLA, you can take queering American history, Chicana lesbian literature, speaking out, public speaking on lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender issues. Last I checked, no class on speaking out on Christian issues. At Wesleyan University, not this one, but the one in Connecticut, you can take queering the American state, politics, and sex after 1968. I don't think John Wesley would be really happy with that. At UT Austin, you can take the family, which is indoctrination into the idea that homosexual parenting is just as good as a mom and dad. It's ironic that there's a researcher from UT Austin who just came out in the past year with research showing exactly the opposite. But yet, there at UT Austin, they have this class trying to teach you something that just isn't true. Jennifer Keaton was expelled from Augusta State University counseling program for having these biblical natural law views because she said, look, I can't counsel people to affirm their homosexual orientation. And she refused to submit to a homosexual mediation plan. The university said, you need to go to gay pride events, you need to go to gay organizations, you need to be changed. This is Augusta State, that's Georgia. Julia Ward at Eastern Michigan University was expelled from their counseling program. Why? Because she wouldn't affirm clients' homosexual behavior, but she would instead refer such clients to other counselors. Actually, the Alliance for Defending Freedom, thank God for them, took her case up, it went to court, and she actually won. Jennifer Keaton did not win. It's worse. Here's where the PG-13 comes in. There's a sex worker show out there where transvestites, strippers, homosexuals, and prostitutes mock America and traditional values. This show that is brought on campus and paid for with student activity fees was shown by Duke, Harvard, the College of William and Mary, the University of Michigan, Wesleyan University, and the University of California at Davis. This was a program, I don't know if it's still being run, but this was 2007, 2008. Imagine somebody bringing in a play to a school like this that affirmed Christian values. They wouldn't tolerate it, would they? In fact, the president of William and Mary was actually fired partially over this, partially because of this and the fact that he said, you know what, you see that cross up there on the chapel? We need to take that down. That could be offensive. The alumni finally got word of this, and when people started calling from William and Mary to say, hey, would you give to William and Mary? They kept saying, is that president still there? Oh, he's there? No. See, that's what talks. Money talks. People stop giving. In fact, a friend of mine, Mike Adams, who teaches at UNC Wilmington and is a Christian, started as an atheist, got tenure, and became a Christian. He's actually suing UNC Wilmington for not advancing him. You can read Mike's columns at townhall.com. He is a very, very witty conservative scholar. He told people at a recent fundraiser for the North Carolina Family Association, he said, you can't give your money anymore to these schools. I just have one question for you. Do you love your basketball tickets more than you love your children? If that's the case, then keep giving to the school. If you love your children more than your basketball tickets, stop giving to these schools. Problem is, most people don't know this is going on college campuses. At Vanderbilt, you can take pornography and prostitution in history. At UCLA, you can take pornography and evolution. At Bates College, you can take doing it, getting it, seeing it, reading it, and you know what it is. At SUNY Buffalo, where Abdu actually went, you can take cyber porn in society. You were not a TA for that, were you? No, I didn't think so. At Pasadena City College, you can take navigating pornography, and believe it or not, at Cornell, you can take the sexual child, which advocates pedophilia. I don't even believe that last one, but it's true. Cornell is an Ivy League school. They're using writings by a homosexual professor from the University of Michigan that advocates pedophilia in that class. It gets worse. See this lady? This is Alice Kuzner. She taught at UNC Chapel Hill. I think she's moved on to a college in Canada now. But you see her there with her two dogs. This was a picture from the UNC website. She's there with her two dogs because she's an advocate of bestiality. Those who have an ardor for dogs know that their passion is unavailable and inaccessible elsewhere. Being independent of gender and sexuality, this love is liberating. Now, who's paying for all this? You are. Just about every school I put up here is a public institution funded by tax dollars. There's a couple of exceptions, but most of these are public. How many in here knew this was going on? Just a few of us. Dinesh D'Souza put it very well in his book, What's So Great About Christianity. He said, children spend the majority of their waking hours in school. Parents invest a good portion of their life savings in college education and trust their offspring to people who are supposed to educate them. Isn't it wonderful that educators have figured out a way to make parents the instruments of their own undoing? Isn't it brilliant that they've persuaded Christian moms and dads to finance the destruction of their own beliefs and values? Who said atheists aren't clever? All right, what's the impact on our kids? If I told you the names of the parents of these people, just about everybody in this room would know them because they're prominent Christians, but I'm not going to tell you their real names. Julie, a pastor's daughter, a prominent pastor's daughter, became an agnostic at UNC Chapel Hill in the orientation program. Why? In the orientation program, they show you videos and they spend all sorts of time saying you got to get rid of your parents' values. About a quarter of the orientation program is accepting homosexuality. That's what it's all about. Steve, son of a famous Christian, renounced biblical morality at Elon. The Bible's wrong about homosexuality, Dad. John, a high school worker for Campus Crusade, became an atheist after reading The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. His father actually emailed me a number of years ago, and he said, my son was the youngest paid person on the Campus Crusade staff. He was like 16. He was being paid somehow. And then he read The God Delusion and became an atheist. I sent him our book. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. I haven't heard back. That's a number of years ago. But this is very prominent. In fact, unless our young people are grounded in the truth and they know why it's the truth, most of them are going to reject God's word, certainly. They're going to reject God's purpose. There is no purpose to life. It's whatever they want to do. As Josh was saying yesterday, they're just making decisions based upon what's best for them. And of course, they're going to reject God's morality. Now, what I'm about to show you here is a clip that's supposed to contain some of the top Christian kids in the country. And let me give you some context here. This clip is over 10 years old. It was maybe 10 or 12 years. A friend of mine, Rick Schatz, has an organization in Cincinnati that fights against pornography. And he at the time, and still is, was friends with James Dobson, who at the time was the head of Focus on the Family. And Schatz went to him and he said, Jim, it's epidemic in our schools. Kids are having sex in the hallways, in locker rooms. This, of course, followed right on the Bill Clinton-Lewinsky thing. He said it's everywhere. And Jim Dobson said, well, I'm sure that's true, Rick, but I'm sure it's not the case in Christian schools. Rick said, it is. Oh, Jim said, no, it isn't. In fact, why don't you come on in and interview some of the students who are here for our Focus on the Family Academy. Every year at the time they were accepting about 60 students from around the country for a semester at Focus on the Family, and it was a very prominent program. There were 2,000 applicants. They took 60 kids, so they took the cream of the crop, and they said, come on in and film these kids. Ask them any question you want. That's what Dobson told Schatz. You know, just ask them any question you want about sexuality and what goes on in their schools. These are all Christian kids. So you're going to hear in the very beginning a couple of guys talking about hooking up, and then they're going to start interviewing the girls, and you're going to see what they say, and here's the PG-13 portion of the program.
And I've seen it in times where it happens in less than a month, and kids just start hooking up.
You'd meet a guy, you know, he was cute, you had a good time together. You'd go out, he'd buy you dinner, and he'd treat you so nice, you know, and that was the thing you would do. You would go home or wherever, and, you know, you would pay him back. You would go down on him, or, you know, vice versa. And I just, you know, it wasn't like this big, like, moral issue to me.
You know, if a guy asked you to give him a blowjob, then be like, yeah, sure, I want to be loved, you know? I want to feel like I'm appreciated. You know, maybe if I do this, then he will love me.
Like teenagers, we just want to be older. And so when you're a virgin, you're still a little kid. It's still like you're young. And we just want to keep getting to that stage where we're older than we are.
That purity, that innocence, I had that taken away from me when I was 7 years old. And a friend of mine has a sticker on her car that reads, "Pornography rapes the mind." You know, you don't think to tell a 7-year-old that these things are bad, that to stay away from it. But I think if someone had told me in a way that I could understand, it would have changed my life.
So Rick Schatz went into Jim Dobson's office with that video clip and showed it to him, and Dobson had the same look on his face that you have on your face right now. I don't believe what I just saw. But this is what's been going on, and most of us don't know anything about it. These are high school kids before they even get to college. Abraham Lincoln said something very profound. The philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of the government in the next. Our government is now not just permitting immorality, we are promoting immorality. In fact, I have a book back there on the table called Correct, Not Politically Correct, How Same-Sex Marriage Hurts Everyone. I don't have time to go into all the bells and whistles or all the moving parts of that particular, it's a short book, but let me just point out this. The purpose of marriage, the reason the government gets involved in marriage is not because two people love one another. That's irrelevant. The reason the government promotes marriage between a man and a woman is because only marriage between a man and a woman perpetuates and stabilizes society. No other relationship can do that. That's why you can't equate any other relationship with the marriage of a man and a woman, because if you do, what you're basically saying is that marriage has nothing to do with children. Well, if marriage has nothing to do with children, then what institution is devoted to children? There isn't. Marriage is it. There's a whole bunch more in that book. No extra charge for that. All right, what's our solution to this problem? There is no perfect solution. There is no one solution. It's going to take an effort, an all-hands-on-deck effort, to try and turn this around and save our young people. And anywhere between 50 and 90%, probably the average number is about 75% of young people walk away from the church once they leave the home. It's not just intellectual reasons that I mentioned. Sometimes it's moral or volitional reasons. But one of the things we try and do is try and combat the error in Babylon. What's Babylon? That's the error in a college campus, a secular college campus, represented over the past decade by these three books generally. You've got Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion, Christopher Hitchens' God is Not Great, Misquoting Jesus by Bart Ehrman, postmodernism or relativism, atheism and materialism, anti-supernaturalism, and of course biblical criticism. I mentioned these yesterday in the session, so this will be a review for some of you. What we try and do is show in 4 questions that Christianity is true. You only have to answer 4 questions in the affirmative to show that Christianity is true. In other words, if you answer yes to these 4 questions, you've got evidence to answer yes to these 4 questions, then Christianity necessarily follows. What are the 4 questions? Here are the 4 questions. Groovin' music, ladies and gentlemen, is from our TV show, which is on every Wednesday and Saturday night. Wednesday night's on at 8 and midnight if you're an insomniac. That's Central Time. Saturday night, 9 p.m. on DirecTV Channel 378. And if you don't have DirecTV, you can watch it on our website right there, crossexamine.org. Just go to the website at those times, click on Media TV Show, and it'll be streaming live. We're also on radio every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Central. I don't know if it's here in the Bartlesville area or not. Is it? What station is it? 88.5, 88.5. Or it's podcasted. It's on our new app, which I'll tell you about in a minute as well. And what we do is we present evidence for Christianity. We cross-examine ideas against it. If you get the app, too, you can go back and look at previous shows. I mentioned yesterday that I did a show with Josh just 8-9 months ago on what is love. You want to listen to that program. In fact, I even got a call from Tony Perkins of the Family Research Council and said, "Wow, that was a great show," like Josh was saying. So check out the show that I did with Josh 8-9 months ago. Just look up his name and you'll find that podcast. Now, why are these the 4 questions? Truth, God, miracles, and the New Testament. I'm going to explain this in a lot more detail tomorrow night in Tulsa. I'll be at Asbury Methodist Church from 6 to 8 tomorrow night to go through the material, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, and then at another church in Broken Arrow on Sunday morning. But let me just briefly point out that if there is no truth, then obviously the Bible can't be true, right? I mean, if it's just true for you but not for me, or all truth is relative, then the Bible can't be true. Of course, if there is no truth, then any book written by an atheist can't be true either, right? Of course there's truth out there. If anyone says there is no truth, you should say what to them? Is that true? You know, it's self-defeating to say there is no truth. Next question, does God exist? You can't have a word from God if there's no God. If there's no God, throw the Bible away and every other book that talks about God. But there really is a God. And in the book and in the seminar, we give 3 arguments for the existence of a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, moral, personal, intelligent creator. 2 of the arguments have scientific evidence behind them. 1 has philosophical evidence behind them. And when you add those arguments up, you get that spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, moral, personal, intelligent creator. The 3rd question, are miracles possible? Obviously, the Bible can't be true if miracles are not possible. But we point out that not only are miracles possible, the greatest miracle in the Bible has already occurred. What's the greatest miracle? We talked about it yesterday. What is it? Yeah, it's the first verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. If that verse is true, every other verse is believable. Well, we have scientific evidence that the first verse is indeed true, that the universe exploded into being in a great explosion a finite time ago. Some people call it the Big Bang. Now, some of you are going, Frank, we're Christians. We don't believe in the Big Bang. You guys don't believe in the Big Bang? I believe in the Big Bang. I just know who banged it. Okay? The evidence for the Big Bang is indeed quite good. Even atheistic scientists like Stephen Hawking are saying almost everyone now believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang. Now, Hawking tries to come up with another explanation for the Big Bang other than God, but he fails. If space, matter, and time had a beginning, the cause must be beyond space, matter, and time. In other words, the cause must be spaceless, timeless, and immaterial, and of course powerful to create the universe out of nothing. Also intelligent to create it with such precision. And he's got to be a person, too. It can't be an it. Why? Because an it has no ability to make choices. An impersonal force like gravity doesn't decide to do things. Like, you know, gravity doesn't go, look, if Turek drops that remote one more time, I'm not going to pull it to the ground, right? It does the same thing over and over again. But in order to go from a state of nothingness to a state of creation, someone had to make a choice, and only persons make choices. So you've got a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal creator. And when you add the moral argument to it, you get a moral creator too. And then and only then can we get to the key question, is the New Testament true? The New Testament doesn't have a prayer. If truth doesn't exist, God doesn't exist, or miracles are not possible. But if truth exists, God exists, and miracles are possible. Then we can see if we have an accurate, historically reliable account of miracles occurring in the first century to a man named Jesus and his apostles in the 27 handwritten Greek manuscripts we put under one binding we now call the New Testament. Did those people tell us the truth, or did they write these documents down much later? They weren't eyewitnesses, they embellished it. Well, if you look in the book, you'll see the evidence for it. If you look in Josh's book, Evidence Demands a Verdict, you'll see the same kind of evidence that no, these documents were early, and they were written down by people who were there, and they proved they were there, and they went and died for it. In fact, as Josh will tell you later, we're finding manuscripts earlier and earlier now. We know these documents were written earlier. Now, some of you are looking at that going, what about the Old Testament? Believe the Old Testament's true? Yes. Why? Well, if the New Testament's reliable, you get the Old Testament thrown in. Why? Who's in the New Testament that can authenticate the Old Testament? Jesus. If Jesus really is God, as the New Testament documents claim he is, then whatever God teaches is true. Jesus taught the entire Old Testament is the Word of God, so if the New Testament's reliable, you get the Old Testament thrown in. Now, we go into a lot more detail in the book, but those are the four major questions that we go on college campuses with, and we give them evidence that Christianity is indeed true. If you want to go further, the book is available, and pretty soon, coming on a shipment from UPS, we'll have DVDs and a curriculum that goes with it. There's that book, Correct, Not Politically Correct, which actually got me fired from Cisco Systems and from Bank of America. You can go read about it if you want on the internet. You'll find it. And there's our website, crossexamined.org. Now, I also mentioned that these are the four basic questions you need to answer. Yesterday, I pointed out that these are the four basic objections you're going to get to Christianity. You're going to get objections in the four E's: evolution, ethics, evil, and eternity. And yesterday I showed you, for those of you who were here, we have a new app that will help you with the four offensive evidences for Christianity: truth, God, miracles, New Testament, and the four defensive in this new app. And if you don't have the new app, you need to get it. You can get it for free. Go to the website, our website, go to the App Store, you can get it. And inside this app, you'll see there's, under a quick answer section, there's truth, God, miracles, Bible, and the four E's. Yesterday I showed you the eternity under the four E's. This is the section under truth. Remember yesterday we were talking about the three questions you need to ask somebody if they say something that you think isn't right? From Greg Kokel's book, Tactics. You know, somebody says something, you think, that's just not right. You should ask them three questions. What are the three questions? What do you mean by that? Somebody says you believe in evolution. What do you mean by evolution? Next question. How did you come to that conclusion? How did you come to the conclusion that we all evolved from the first one-celled creature without intelligent intervention? Where does that come from? What evidence do you have for that? You know, most people aren't going to know. Third question. Have you ever considered that's your opportunity to give evidence back? Well, all those questions are right here. Ask the right question. So if you click on that button, you'll get the answer. What's the most important question you should ask somebody who's not a Christian? That's under that button right there. We talked about the Roadrunner tactic yesterday. There is no truth. There are no objective truths, no absolute truths. All truth is relative. This one here, you can't see it, is the one Josh mentioned yesterday. I believe it, or it's true because I have faith. That's that one right there. You can't see. There's many more if you go down further. If you look at the God section, people say there's no evidence for God's existence. You hit that button right there on your iPhone or your iPad, you're going to get an answer. Some of the things that crazy atheist was talking about in our class yesterday, how many were here when that crazy atheist showed up last night and tried to pepper us with all sorts of atheistic claims? They're answered right here. Remember he was talking about, atheists know morality, atheists can be moral, what about the moral argument? All those are right there. So you'll have them right at your fingertips. So get the app if you would. So I'll be in Tulsa this weekend if you want more on this. It's going to be at Asbury Methodist Church tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. All this is on our website, crossexamined.org, and then continuing at another church in Broken Arrow. The books and the DVDs are on the table. Don't forget about the app. It's free. If you sign up for our Cross-Examined email, we'll send you one email a month that will give you a short apologetic article to help you defend the faith. There are little cards on the table that you can fill out for that. We don't give your email address to anyone else. We're also on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, as everyone is. In fact, we're so into social media, we've combined YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook into a new social media platform. We call it UTwitface. Okay? So you may want to sign up for that. Don't forget about radio and TV. All right? Now, Dr. Piper, how much time do we have for questions?
We need to move it along, Frank, because we've got chapel coming. So
Chapel's at 10?
Why don't you take one question, okay?
Okay. Anyone have any questions? No one likes to ask the first question, so we'll move right on to the second question. Do we have any questions? Email me, frank@crossexamined.org. frank@crossexamined.org. We go to churches, high schools, and colleges mostly. Yeah, I'd love to come to your church. That wasn't much of a question. Ken, go ahead. Yes. Uh-huh. Well, I think that's a question, as Sean was talking about yesterday, that there is a divide among Christians of. And the point I try and make is that God created is more certain than when. And I think no matter what position you take, you're making assumptions you can't prove. Even if you take a young earth position or an old earth position, you're making assumptions that you can't prove. Now, it seems to me that the old earth assumptions seem to be more credible, but they're still assumptions nonetheless, like the speed of light from the stars, right? You're making assumptions the speed of light hasn't changed. Has it changed? I don't know. If it has changed, then all the other laws of physics would have to change too, and it's probably a good assumption to say they haven't. Yeah, you don't want to give kids faulty science, but again, science doesn't say anything scientists do. And so you have to look at what scientists are saying and what their assumptions are, and encourage them to look at both sides of that issue. Don't just teach one side, look at both sides of it.
Let's thank Frank for doing an excellent job.